Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Word on the Snakebite. I'm your host Ross Deacon, and in this podcast we talk all about things venomous animal related, from venom research, venomous animal husbandry, animal conservation, herping, and of course snakebite and snakebite initiatives from all around this world. On this episode, I've joining me as my co-host.
Hi, I'm Ed, and before we start, I have to do a few formalities. Any views expressed in this episode are the views of the guests and the host, not the facilities or company they work for.
And today we're going to do our first ever episode on this Indian snakebite situation, an understanding of how the Indian snakebite, the situation of snakebites in India is different to what it is in Africa. And today we have joining us Jose Louies. Is that how you say it? I've probably said it wrong.
As it is a record, we can have edits. It's Jose Louies.
Jose Louies. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll edit that out. I'm usually pretty good with editing, or I don't really bother and just let people laugh at me saying people's names wrong. One way or the other. So Joseph's joining us today from the Snakebite Institute, Indian Snakes, and also Wildlife Trust of India. He's going to talk to us today about some of the situations and issues that they have in India and some of the work that him and the organisations he's involved in are doing to help combat snakebite within India. So, Jose, how did you get involved? Can you explain a little bit more about how you got involved in snakebite, a little bit more about yourself and your kind of background on snakes and reptiles, please?
Yeah. Hi there. My name is Jose Louies. I'm from India, and I work on snakes and snake bites across the country. Basically, I'm a conservationist. I work with Wildlife Trust of India, and I'm doing it for last 1.5 decades. It's 15 years. I'm working in wildlife conservation. I think I was very much interested about snakes and all those creepy crawlies from my childhood. So my first snake happened when I was about 5-year-old. So I started picking snakes from my neighborhood, and my parents were worried. And that is, as far as I can remember, my love affair with snakes. And that got into a serious career thing when I was grown up. I started rescuing snakes when I was a student. Then I got into serious wildlife conservation.
So just to go back a little bit, what type of snakes were you finding when you were a child in your village?
Well, I grown up in a farm kind of an area in the southern part of India, Kerala. So there we had almost all type of snakes. I mean, we had cobras, we had kraits, we had harmless snakes like the flying snakes. I had almost about 30 species of snake in my neighborhood. So, and my grandfather was very good with animals and birds, so he could help me to identify what is venomous, what is non-venomous. So that's how I learned probably my wildlife conservation or wildlife. I learned it from my grandfather to begin with. I mean, that was my childhood lessons about wildlife, and that is where my journey started in wildlife.
It's very interesting because I think that's one thing in the Western world we struggle with, is that we don't grow up with especially reptiles in our neighbourhoods, in our villages, in our towns. So we struggle to understand, like, when people say, "Oh, I was catching them from really young," we all go, "Oh, I wish I was."
But I should say that it was not such a cool thing because my parents were absolutely worried about a 5-year-old is fascinated by snakes, and there were days that my parents actually took me to a priest to find out whether there is something wrong about it, the whole thing. Because being strong believers, my parents started thinking that there is something wrong with me because I'm getting attracted to snakes, where other children are playing with toys and other stuff. My thing was, I had days where I had a small snake kept in a box. And, my mom comes and asks me, what is it? I say that, this is a small snake. So that happened in my life. So, you find you and the snake and the box outside of the house immediately. So it was funny. I mean, when I look back, it looks very interesting and it's funny.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a cultural difference and stuff like with that, and it's that's one of the brilliant things of this podcast, that we've got to hear like other people say, oh, I was brought up around it like you were. You grew up around wildlife and around snakes, and that appreciation for you has grown into a career where you, as you say, your granddad taught you a lot of stuff, and now you do this. You do this as a career, and that's great.
Yeah.
So how did you go from that fascination as a child into conservation and snakebite?
I when I was studying, I moved out of my hometown and I was studying in a different city, and there I could go for snake rescue. So I started rescuing snakes as a professional rescuer. I got associated with a local group, and where I actually got trained, hands-on training on professional rescue. And I started attending snake rescue calls. This was in Gujarat state in Baroda. So I probably started professional rescuing of snakes in 96, 97. And since then I'm rescuing snakes. So then I was actually a student of information technology. Then I was working, and then I got full-time into wildlife conservation. I got into a full-time wildlife conservation job back in 2003, where my first assignment was in Delhi, where I was actually handling a snake rescue helpline in the National Capital Region. So that was about, attending calls from the police control room, fire department, and wildlife department. We had a 24/7 rescue unit, and I used to man it, and I used to get calls, and I used to go and rescue snakes. So that's how the whole thing started into a full-time thing. Well, then I was very much interested in setting up something like, a portal for snakes, so that anybody who would like to have a look at what snakes are in their neighborhood or in their area, they should be able to find out without buying a book or, those days there was no WhatsApp and all. So that is how the whole idea of a website came in. With a friend of mine, Vivek Sharma, I started the website in 2007, and it was a humble beginning. And now in 2019, we have a website, indiansnakes.org, and we have Indian Snakebite Initiative. Two websites, one is on snakes and one is on Snakebite Initiative. And the other good thing happened in between. In 2010, I met Romulus Whittaker. I mean, I was in touch with him over emails and phone calls. I met him not in 2010. I met him in 2007, actually, first. And I should admit that Rom inspired a lot, because, an American coming to India and staying in India and working with Indian community and working on snakes and snake conservation. I mean, we secretly called him as the godfather of all the serpents in India.
We call him as one of the godfathers of herpetology worldwide. The guy is fantastic. He is as much, he means as much to us here in England as he does to you in India. He's great.
Yeah. So I met him, and then Rome was, I mean, I should say that whatever I'm doing, I owe a lot to Rome. I mean, I don't admit that on the public place, at least. But I should say that, that guy, that Rome, inspired a lot. Why don't you do things in a larger, better way? And that's how the whole, networking started. We started a Facebook group. We got about 26,000 people. I mean, these are selected people. We don't give membership to everybody. We got a group running with about 26,000 people in the Facebook group. Then got about 1,000 plus volunteers across the country. The good thing today is, most part of the country, I can pick up the phone and call up someone and say that there is a snake emergency in their area. We developed a network of snake rescuers across the country, India Snake Rescue Network.
And I think that is one of the best, from everything I've read recently about the work you've done. That I think that is one of the biggest things that's shouted out to me is trying to give people give the community somebody to be able to call and be able to remove the snakes safely and calmly from a situation, to not allow the snake bite to happen initially. And I think that's a great piece of work. That is really good.
So when I don't rescue snakes on a regular basis. My regular conservation job involves something else. I work on wildlife crime. So I'll be traveling. But the thing is that we managed to set up this group across the country so that anytime there is a rescue and there is an emergency, these people can be contacted. I mean, there are WhatsApp groups. There is uh, now I think probably in next 15 to 20 days we'll be coming up with a mobile app. I mean, the final touches are going on. Actually, in fact, I'm sitting with the team and doing it as of now. Um, the website and the new mobile app will be in such a way that it will be like Uber or Ola. You will be able to find the nearest rescuer in your area using the mobile app. You will be able to find out what snakes are found in your area, and also you can find which is the nearest hospital in your area. So this is the kind of things which we would like to give to the people across the country using technology, that they will know whom to call if there is a snake spotted. They will also have a option in the app where they can click a picture and send it to us for identification. So about a dozen of our experts will be, one of us will be online uh, in most time. So that is how it is designed. So we will get an alert saying that somebody is asking for a snake identification, and we'll be able to tell people that what snake it is. So we are now, mobilizing this national level network into a fully functional single unit, so that anything related to snake emergencies, snake rescue, snake bite, we should be able to respond. The whole idea of Indian Snakebite Initiative is that we have snake experts, we have doctors, we have education experts. So the whole idea of Indian Snakebite Initiative is to bring all these people together, use technology. We are planning and we are using a lot of technology to run it smoothly, so that over a period of time within next 5 years, I'm not being very very fast about getting results. It will take about another 3 to 5 years uh, to to have a system which works across the country, which will respond to any snake related emergency within the shortest period of time. It can be a rescue of a snake, it can be identification of a snake, it can be giving instruction or guidance to people when there is a snake bite emergency, to which hospital, which is the nearest hospital they can go, and alert the hospital that there is a snake bite patient coming in, and also conducting awareness and training sessions for people and healthcare workers across the country. So that is what we're planning in next 5 to 10 years.
That will be a major step forward to what's available today worldwide. I think that's fantastic. That is genuinely fantastic. I just it's so surprising, and I think people don't realise that the rate of growth of tech. I think people would be quite surprised because of the amount of, are you saying, a mobile phone app and stuff. But the rate of growth in India at the minute is so vast that it's allowing you to be able to effectively launch this app at the same time as that growth is happening, to be able to make it a everyday thing for people to be able to use and to understand. I think that's absolutely great. That's absolutely great. So we're talking about the Indian Snakebite Initiative. Could you please tell us a little bit more about what the issue actually is in India and how big that issue is in India around snakebite and obviously living with snakes?
Yeah, there are a few things. One, as you know, we lose about 50,000 people a year. That is science is already, people studied and they proved that we have the largest number of snake bites in the world. India is the snake bite capital. But when you look at why this is happening, I said this is because of a lot of snakes and a lot of people, and they share the same space. So it is as simple as that. We have the big four, the common cobra, great Russell's viper, and soft scale viper, which are found all across the country. And fortunately or unfortunately, these snakes found a way around to survive with people. And many times we talked about human beings intruding into habitats, and we are pushing snakes away. But when I'm looking at is that many of our cities, rural India, is actually created good habitat for snakes. Uh, you know, our rural Indian villages are probably the perfect habitat for all of the snakes. There is food, there is shelter, and there is hiding place, and there is place to breed, there is place to survive. So you go any part of the country, you find all four of these venomous snakes, or minimum three of them. Saw scale viper being the one which has got lesser distribution. But common cobra, for example, we have a software. We already tested our success with the mobile app. In 2017, we launched a mobile app to map the big four venomous snake. So far, we got about 5,000 plus data sets, which shows that about 70% of the situation it is common cobra which enter into the human households, and most of the time, I mean, when we analyze the data, 80% of the time it is either inside the house or next to the house. So cobras are finding a very good habitat to stay inside, along with people. So this close living together is what is creating the problem. Snakes intentionally don't bite anybody, but when they are threatened, they will bite because that is what they are supposed to do. They are designed to do that. So we have a lot of people living in rural India, which is a very, very suitable habitat for snakes. And there are snakes surviving in this area: cobras, great, Russell's viper, and Soscale viper. So this close proximity with each other is leading to unwanted encounters, and that is what is causing the snake bites in the first place. I also start thinking that we actually created a favorable habitat for snakes in many of these places. So that is why the snakes population is surviving. I mean, any of our metros, including Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, Kolkata, all the cities, there are rescuers who are reporting cobras, kraits, Russell's vipers from the middle of the city. So that shows that snakes found a way to survive with people around. So that's what is creating a large number of snake bites. So that's a cause of snake bites: widespread population of snakes and people. I hope I answered it.
Yeah, you
Sorry,
answered it
Carlos.
really well. You answered it really well. So, do you still see? Obviously, with Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, they're all very large cities. Are you still seeing masses of snake bites within inner cities as well? Then
Um,
it's always
y- yes, there are snake bite incidents in the city, but the rural Indian snake bite is probably it is 90% of the snake bites are coming from rural India, because in rural India, people, when you look at the lifestyle of people, and that is what makes snake bites happen. I mean, in major cities we may not have that many snake bites, but when you go to rural India, the lifestyle makes it possible, because people go cut grass, they walk outside without footwear. Obviously the number of snakes in the rural India is much higher than the number of snakes in city. I mean, we do find cobras in Delhi, but probably it is much much higher than what we find in a neighboring small town. So the way people you know behave, the way people function throughout the day, that's what makes the snake bite happen. When you go to rural India, I went to a couple of places recently where I looked at what is a common cause of getting snake bites, like the tiled roofs or unplastered walls where snakes hide, and people go and put things there. Like, I was discussing with a lady who got bitten in the morning by a crate in her hand. So she used to keep her toothbrush in a little gap in the wall. There was a brick fallen down, so she used to keep that toothbrush there. So that was an everyday thing for her. She couldn't see what is there. She'll every day morning she'll go and pick up the toothbrush. So the day when she got bitten, that day also she went and put her hand inside the hall to pull the toothbrush. But previous night, probably a crate which came after feeding, and it found that place as a good hiding place. It was sitting there. It bitten her on her finger, and then she understood that there is something bitten her. She looked into and she found that it's a snake. So that's how people get bitten. So it is how they interact or how they live will makes a lot of difference. People who collect firewood, people who go and collect people who work in farmlands, they get bitten a lot. In the town, people use cars, motorcycles, and even if you have snakes in gardens and many places, people don't get that much. Bite cases will be much lesser in cities, but we do have snakes in our cities.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the. I mean, I mainly talk from an African snakebite kind of perspective, but when you talk to people, especially in kind of the Indian snake bites,
you get the common kind of messages that are always spread. So you're talking about gaps in people's houses and the walls and stuff where they keep stuff. With the African snakebite work, a lot of it is because of people's houses not being secure or the way that they store stuff inside the houses. And these kind of recurring themes keep coming up, and how the kind of how the different initiatives have to work to deal with the issues. So within the African snakebite kind of work, a lot of the time is make sure you don't store your food and water on the floor so that rodents can't get to it, which will bring the snakes. Whereas you're saying stuff like gaps in wall with a toothbrush, which is interesting to hear from my perspective, how you go about working alongside the community to kind of alleviate these issues. I know that there's been a large push for head torches within communities for people to use head torches when walking at night. Is there anything else you're kind of pushing as an initiative within the communities?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at snake bites in India, I may probably continue talking for next 4 hours. I mean, let us structure it. So, one, we have a lot of snakes, we have a lot of people, and they share the common space. So that is problem number one. We have done this mapping. I don't know whether you came across with that Big Four mapping, where we try to analyze what snakes are found, what part of the country. You need to understand where your threat lies. So last 2 years we were mapping snakes across the country, and we are finding that the good number of snakes all over the country. And we are also analyzing snakebite situations. And yes, I think a lot of similarities are there, that people sharing space with snakes, they are not using flashlights at night, they're sleeping on the floor, they are not protecting themselves during agricultural activities, they are not wearing footwear, they are not taking enough precautions. So these are things which will lead to snake bites. I call there are a lot of favorable elements which play together towards a snake bite happening. When you go to a snake bite situation, then you try to rewind the situation, then you will see that how it slowly build up to that particular situation. People going to the field on a regular basis, they get used to the place, they do understand that there is a snake, but they don't take that precaution. Then one fine day they get bitten. Now, the problems when you come to dealing with snake bites, of course you try to avoid it. Second thing is, a snake bite happens. A snake bite never comes with a warning that no snakes come 2 days earlier and tell you that, hey, couple of days later I'm going to bite you. No, nothing. It's an accident. Nobody is prepared for a snake bite. Everybody knows that there are snakes, but the moment a snake bite happens, there is panic because nobody is prepared. And India, we are a funny big country. We got different culture, different language, different faiths. In most places in rural India, if a snake bite happens, then the patient is taken to a local healer first, because that is probably one of the biggest challenge which we face. From the bite to a proper hospital treatment, it takes a lot of time. First, you don't know what to do. There is a shock, there is confusion. Then someone will come, they'll say that, I know someone who can treat snake bites. They'll take him there, try to treat, and then if it is not happening, then they take to a hospital. And that hospital, there may not be antivenom, there may not be a doctor, they will refer you to another hospital. A lot of valuable time you lose, and the patient. So that is what is probably the major challenge. Now, let us look at India. We probably manufacture the largest quantity of antivenom. I'm not talking about the quality, but I know when I interacted with a couple of international experts, they say that, the Indian antivenom quality has to improve. I'm no one to comment on that, but we do manufacture antivenom. We have a government policy that every government hospital should be prepared to treat snake bites. Antivenom should be available free of cost. Medical treatment should be available free of cost. Now, the problem is the response to snake bite. A snake bite happens, people take the patient to a local healer. He is not able to heal the patient. Then they will go to the hospital. The doctor will give antivenom, but it is too late. The patient dies. The general common man will think that, look, we have taken him to the hospital. He died in the hospital. So the faith in the hospital system will come down. How the quacks and the local healers works, that's a different story. 90% of the snake bites are non-venomous snake bites. There is no venom entered. Or we got about 30 species in an area, which are out of which probably 3 or 4 will be venomous. So the probability of you getting bitten by a venomous species is low. Science and we all know that the not all the snake bites you get injected by venom. So the the probability of you getting bitten by a venomous snake and envenomation is about 10%. Let's look at that. Now you take all the patient to a local healer, his success rate is 90% because he's treating every snake bite. I never came across with a local healer who said that the bite is by a non-venomous snake. I've taken people with a non-venomous snake bite. Once I pretended myself as a snake bite victim into a local healer, and he told me that, I'm bitten by a black cobra. I'm going to die in the next 2-3 hours. I was panicking. I was crying. I was making a lot of drama. I wanted to see that how they respond. So he said, I'm bitten by a black cobra, and but he will try to save me. And then he performed some rituals and poured something on my head. And then finally I was okay. So it's a lot of drama. It's a lot of rituals around, and his marketing is in such a way that, okay, I saved 90% of the snakebite cases. 10% I lost, but that is a God's curse that, there are so many religious excuses they will give that, you had a Nagdosha. Nagdosha is a concept where, your family is cursed by the snake gods. Now I can't save you. So those people don't even survive in the hospital. So this is probably the biggest challenge, the way the Indian society emerged, and the kind of faith and the beliefs and the rituals across the country. And the biggest challenge is that every 50 kilometers, every 100 kilometers, this faith and the healing procedure changes. So you can't come with a national level model saying that this is bad, this is bad. So you have to go to all the smaller areas and work with this local communities. Tell them that you don't waste your time going to all this local healers. Please go to the hospital immediately and reach the patient immediately to the hospital, and they can be saved. I mean, whatever it is, last 50-60 years we are saving a many number of people with antivenoms. I know a number of cases where people were saved with antivenom, but they reached hospitals on time. So that is probably one of the biggest challenge which we face. Now the other problem, now you have snakes, you have snake bites, you reach the hospital. That is when the third problem happens. Not every hospital is prepared to deal with a snake bite. Snake bites are accident. Snake bites create a lot of panic. The patient comes with not only his relatives. India, we believe in in a larger brotherhood. A person getting bitten by a snake in the village will be accompanied by about 50 people. They come to the hospital. They want to know. I mean, they are concerned about the patient. And many hospitals will say that, oh, we don't want to take the risk because it's a snake bite. Our doctor is not competent enough. They will refer the patient to another hospital. So that is where we lose a lot of time. We have to train our medical professionals how to deal with a snake bite emergency. Snake bite, in my opinion, snake bite can be treated if a patient is brought in time. We work with a couple of hospitals. We work in rural India. We support a few hospitals with a regular supply of antivenom because hospitals were finding it was difficult for them to get antivenom. So those hospitals are doctor with a basic degree, but a lot of commitment. I mean, both the places where we are working very closely with the two doctors, and they say that if we get a victim on time and not too much in panic, and we are able to save them. I mean, they give antivenom, they keep the patient calm, and they ensure that you don't need too much of a big infrastructure to save a life. Or they can, at least they can, in a small hospital, they can stabilize the patient and then refer the patient to a major hospital. So the way the medical system respond to a snake bite has to be improved. We have a national ambulance system. We call it as a 108. You can get free ambulance services, and the ambulances will take them to the right hospital. So now what we need is that people should be able to find the right hospital. So that is what we are working on. We are mapping as many as hospitals possible across the country and putting in a mobile app, telling people that, okay, this is the nearest hospital where you can get assured snakebite treatment. So people can go to that hospital, and also they can call up the hospital in advance. We have a snakebite patient, we are on the way, please ensure that the doctor is there. Look, practically in the evening about 6 or 7 o'clock, because most of the snake bites happen in the evening, the doctor must had a long day. The doctor just went home, he's having dinner, he's taking a bath, or he went out with his friends, and that is when a snakebite patient comes, because in many rural hospitals in India there is only one doctor who's 24/7 available. So the patient reaches there, the doctor is not there. So we want to reduce that time also. That is something which we really have to work. That beforehand, before a patient reaches the hospital should know that, okay, there is a suspected snakebite patient on the way. The moment the patient reaches the hospital should be ready. There should be antivenom. There should be a doctor ready. The doctor should be available to check the patient. And he should, all he needs to do is that follow the protocol, use enough antivenom. There were incidents where we got involved. That is when I understood what the problem is. People actually took patients to hospital. Doctor is not there because doctor is in his quarters. The hospital staff goes there and bring the doctor. The doctor comes, antivenom, which is a life-saving drug, which is kept in a lock and keyed room, and the person who got the key is not there. So you have to find the person, get the antivenom, so things get delayed. So we really have to work with the hospitals to ensure that snakebite treatment or snakebite emergency is treated in a proper manner. So if we can do these few things, things will be all right.
I think one thing that we, as you say, with the doctors and the rural hospitals is something that in a Western world we struggle to understand, because we have a hospital, a very well equipped hospital, very close, and such forth. So, do you find that a lot of the doctors just don't know how to actively treat snakebite correctly, either systematically or with antivenom, or do you find that doctors are actually of a reasonable level?
When we interacted with the doctors, let me tell you what I learned. They say that many of them don't have much exposure to snakebite treatments. So they are not very sure about treating the patient. So they refer. The safest option is to refer the patient to a different hospital. Yes, there is a lot needed to improve the capacity of doctors to deal with snake bites, especially the smaller hospital in rural India. There is a need.
It seems very. It seems. Sorry. It definitely seems from a standpoint, a lot of the issues that you see in India are very, very similar, as Ed said, to the issues that they see they're seeing in Africa as well.
Yeah, and
It
another
seems like
thing.
these issues aren't necessarily isolated.
Yeah, another thing we found is that many hospitals, doctors don't wait for the symptoms. If it is a snakebite patient, their first approach is to give 1 or 2 vials of antivenom to the patient. Now, these things, I'm not a doctor to comment on that. So we have to train our doctors to deal with snake bites and based on the symptoms. They should wait for the symptoms, they should look for the symptoms, and they should treat. The problem what is happening is that you get a lot of non-venomous snake bites. And for every bite, if they are using 2 or 3 vials of antivenom to stabilize the patient or, as a anticipatory bail against death, they're losing valuable vials of antivenom. Then when actually a patient who's bitten by a cobra or a crate comes and who needs about 20 vials of antivenom, they are running short of antivenom. So that's another thing which we should look at, how they treat. There is a lot need for treatments. So that's another thing which we are looking at, we have to connect to people, and people should be able to send us photographs. And, a suspected snake this is the suspected snake. Many times, I'm a conservationist, but we get a lot of dead snake photos from people saying that this is a snake which bitten the patient. So we know that, okay, it's a non-venomous snake. We can tell them that, look, boss, it is a non-venomous snake, but still you go to the hospital. But you don't have to worry much. We can tell the doctor, look, this is a non-venomous snake as far as we know. But there is a 1% chance, the snake got killed is a venomous snake, and sorry, non-venomous snake, and other venomous snake is hiding somewhere. So, but we don't want to take chance, but we can reassure the victim and the people around, saying that, this is a non-venomous snake, and the doctor has to really has to look for symptoms. So we really need to reduce the panic when a snake bite happens. uh, I say there are three things which we have to do. One is awareness, second thing is ambulance, and the third thing is anti-venom. Awareness about snakes and snake bites to the general public. Ambulance is something which immediately after the snake bite, the patient has to be taken to a hospital, whatever available transportation method, whether it is a motorcycle or a cycle or an actual ambulance. So the transportation is key. Immediately take the patient there. And then the third thing is anti-venom. You need anti-venom in the hospital. Nothing else works. No prayers, no miracles, no rituals works. You need anti-venom, and anti-venom should be administered by a qualified doctor. Snake bite, in my opinion, snake bite is not something which you are not able to treat. You are able to treat, but the problem is the response is not in place.
Yeah, and I think that is very much a very similar position that we see, that is seen worldwide as well. There's something you just said there that was this very interesting, is that you've with ambulances, you said number two, get an ambulance, get somebody to the hospital, and with being a lot of rural areas in India, they are very remote, even more remote than some places in Africa. Do you find that that is one of the big issues, is having that network of emergency services to be able to help people get to hospitals?
Um, uh, Not as much, because I do travel in rural India a lot. Most places there is a road network. Most of the people, even if you go to the rural part, except in the high mountain ranges, but there are snake bites are much lesser. Uh, Most places there is a road network, and people actually can take a patient to the hospital on a motorcycle minimum. I mean, accessibility is much improved in India. 50 kilometers is maximum. Probably you have to reach a hospital. Uh, so I don't think it is a major problem. The problem is the response. The India. If I put my first problem is the kind of response which you have when a snake bite happens. So that's a problem. People will be able to take a patient to the hospital. Mobile networks in many parts of the country, mobile networks are there, so they can call up the emergency helpline. Uh, the police is very good. I discussed this situation with the police department and forest department, whom I work a lot with. Forest department says that in many cases, when a villager is bitten by a snake, the local forester or the range officer will have his own vehicle, and they will take the patient to the hospital. So it is not a major issue, but yes, in some parts of the country that will be an issue. But most places we can avoid serious damage by taking patient to the hospital.
So then it becomes obviously more about the time it takes them to get to the hospital. With
I
obviously
think
depending
that
on
is, I think that is the major thing. The snake bite happens, and then the wait. You know, they go from one place to another place, one ritual person to other ritual person, and also there will be five relatives who will be walking in and giving suggestions that you go to this person, you go to this person, you go to this person. They will have multiple options. That is where the valuable time is lost.
yes, it definitely seems that is the case. It's quite sobering, actually, speaking to you and realizing that these issues aren't just to India, they are to effectively to other issues that are having the same thing worldwide, which is pretty amazing, actually. Is because you think obviously different countries would have different issues. However, in fact, it's very, as you say, it's the same issue or very similar issues, just with different snakes that are creating those issues. So, do you see from region to region? Do you see that you have more snake bites of certain species to others dependent on region, or is it a case of they're all that widely spread that you see the same percentage of snake bites everywhere?
From region to region, from season to season, definitely the species responsible for the bite differ. This is something which is we see in a pure sense of a combat mode. If you are saying that snakebite is a big battle, we have to fight it. I say that let us go in a very clinical way. Let us find out who are your enemies and where they are sitting. I mean, I shouldn't be saying that, but when I look at snakebite as a killer problem, let me look at that way. The snake species distribution is different from part to part of the country. For example, I can find common cobra, which is Naja Naja, in most part of the country, but towards the northeastern part of the country, Naja Naja has got another species, which is a monocellate cobra. So that species is different. Russell's viper is spread all across the country, but again, the population density varies in many places. Uh, Common crate is also spread across the country, but saw scale viper is found in limited areas. The seasonal activities of these snakes also differ. Uh, when we look at it as winter months, there are a lot of snake bite cases by crates because they have a tendency to, come closer to a warm body and, to get themselves warmed up, and then they end up biting the patient. Monsoon, you will find a lot of cobra bites and Russell's viper bites because there will be high activity, and also monsoon is the time when the rain starts. There will be a lot of baby snakes around, and our snakes are pretty big. I mean, big Russell's viper mother can do a carpet bombing of about 50, 60 hatchlings as she goes, because she gave birth to live baby snakes. So imagine that you are sitting in a place, suddenly there are 60 baby snakes comes up and they try to, move around and find places, and they're at the time of birth itself, they're armed with a potential venom. Same as cobras. A large cobra can produce about 30, 40 eggs, and she can produce a lot of babies. So during monsoon, the snake bite will be very high. So seasonal variation, regional variations are there. We there is a there is a huge need for understanding regional variation in species, because the world is looking forward species specific antivenoms. So what we are trying to do is that by the time we come out with the regional specific antivenom, we should be able to say that, okay, this area we have got largely cobras, this area we got largely saw scale vipers. So that study has to be done. I mean, there is a huge difference. There is a huge difference in species in various region, and the activity of the species are different in different seasons.
Yeah, it seems like it's such a widespread problem, as you say, kind of, and that different seasons probably makes it harder to actually combat some of the things that you're trying to understand, to get people, as you say, certain parts of the year when you're in monsoon season. You got to understand that there will be the chance of baby snakes that you're less likely to see. You're more likely to stand on because you don't see them, or they're more likely to be in your house, and you're not going to see them before you bit them, compared to an adult animal.
Yeah.
And I think that's. I'll let you
Sorry,
carry on.
go ahead.
I'll let you carry on. So, as you say, that kind of could be quite a big thing as regarding, as you say, the seasons with the baby animals in the house, and you're not going to see them before you either stand on them or you put your hand on them, because they are considerably smaller than the adults. So one thing that I was going to ask about, and I've seen that you've done quite a bit of work on in the past, is the whole snake charming and thing that tradition that there is in India, and the use of those animals, of cobras specifically. It seems to be more cobra based than anything else. Do you find that generates quite a lot of snake bite situations and kind of myths and misunderstanding in the country, because you've got these people that are doing these things with these animals?
Snake charming is on the decline as of now. because snake charming itself is an illegal thing in India. Snakes are actually a common cobra is protected species under the laws of the country. The snake charmers actually created a lot of myths about snakes, and they were responsible for these kind of things because many rural Indian setups, the snake charmer is considered as the snake bite healer also. And I worked with snake charmers, and they themselves admitted that they don't have any treatment for a cobra bite, but they also know that most of the bites are by non-venomous snakes. So a snake charmer being a snake charmer, he will say that whomever comes to me, I'll treat as if I'm treating a venomous snake bite. And if it is a cobra bite or a viper bite, which I cannot manage, I'll tell them to take it to the hospital. But otherwise, they treat. So they created a lot of myths about snakes and snake bites across the country. But fortunately, people are nowadays, at least in many parts of the country, people are understanding that these are not correct things. But still, there are a lot of snake charmers in India.
See, I think that's something that people outside of India don't realise how protected that actually a lot of your wildlife is, and a lot of your basically specifically reptile wildlife is protected. And I think that's it's very misunderstood. Is like what we see on social media and on the internet is we tend to see the snake charmers being bitten and that, and we don't see the local farmer, the rural farmer getting bitten, and the scale of the injuries that these people have. We only ever tend to see the snake catchers or the charmers. I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings from outside, definitely from outside of India, that we have, and it's quite surprising actually that you say that is actually an illegal activity. I didn't actually know that.
So let me make it very clear. I actually work on wildlife crime with Wildlife Trust of India. Uh, in India, any wild animal found in its natural habitat within India, it is protected. A snake, a cobra, is protected in the Schedule 2, Part 2 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So if you are keeping a cobra in your illegal custody, you are liable for a punishment up to 3 years. So it is a serious offense holding snakes in your personal possession. So Indian wildlife laws are very strict, probably one of the strictest in the world. So our wildlife is absolutely protected, whether it is a rhino or a tiger or a rat snake, it is protected in the country. So the law is there.
It's quite interesting that is something that, as I said, that was just very much I didn't fully understand, or maybe not understand, but didn't realise that was the case. So when you get can I take it back a little bit into the kind of the faith healer treatment that we find on that you find on snake bites? Sorry, my head's just gone all funny again. I'll restart that.
No worry.
The snake bite treatment that you find from local healers and stuff, you say that varies quite considerably. Is there a kind of a common thing that they all do, or is it more of a case of that they are all vastly different, and you find that some may delay the process more of getting somebody to hospital more than others, or do you find that some refuse to allow their patients to go to hospital full stop, and that's actually where we're finding people are in insavable positions?
I'm going to give you a googly in typical cricket language.
As a cricket fan, I like that reference.
Yeah. I came across with the two type of people who treat snake bites. Healers, the so-called healers. One whom you know that there is no base, nothing. It is pure hawks. They don't know anything about snake bites, but they do it for their survival. There is no science, there is no treatment, there is nothing. They will just treat you with simple things like salt and, probably some leaves and all. So there is no science behind it. But also I came across with people who actually know something about snake bites. So that is something which we are supposed to investigate and explore and find out what is the truth behind some of these treatments. Largely 90% or 95% snakebite treatment is useless. There is no way you can save yourself from a snake bite. There are few traditional healers who practice the age old, centuries old Ayurveda things. There is something they can do. Probably they know about some medicines or some plant extracts which can probably delay the process of envenomation. Something is there, but I'm very cautious about it. That needs a scientific study and a verification. I interacted with the people who are treating snake bites for 4 generations, who has got records of snake bite patients. I will not be able to, at this position, able to say that their treatment is correct, but I will say that their treatment methods need scientific validation, that these treatments has got something to do with, especially some of the treatments where the after bite effects, like the gangrene wounds can be treated using herbal remedies. So that I have seen in front of my eyes. But the the sure shot thing is the anti venom, so they should go to the hospital. Now, in this bogus or in this quack set of people, there are people who talks about medicine. There are people who talks about rituals. The ritual guys are the most dangerous fellows, because they will make you to undergo a lot of rituals which are just rituals. I mean, there is no medicines given to you, there is no relief given to you, but they will perform various black magic or god pleasing rituals, and they will try to tell you that that is what is going to save you. I've come across with bizarre things, like they wrap the patient in cow dung, or they wrap the patient in a thick blanket and put mud on them, or just put the patient under a particular tree and say that you will be healed. If it is a non-venomous snake bite, they come out alive. If it is a venomous snake bite where venom went inside, the patient will die. So I'll say that the ritualistic treatments are dangerous, and they will they also delay the entire process, because uh, the ritual fellow will say that, oh, if you don't listen to me and if you take the patient to the hospital, he is going to die. So you're scared, you don't want to take him to the hospital, but you're seeing that the condition is deteriorating, and the patient may die. The most interesting thing is, in no cases the public will go against the ritual person, because they are revered as the holy men. But if a patient dies in the hospital, they will vandalize the hospital, burn the hospital, or break the glasses, or throw some stones at the vehicle, or even manhandle the doctor. But when it comes to a holy man, they don't touch him. So they are kind of protected. They say that this is all faith. So it's a complex situation when it comes to ritual healings, because whenever I went to a person who practice such kind of a treatment and try to get into a dialogue with them, they get very angry. I must have been cursed by many of these ritual healers whomever I went and met. They told me that I'll get bitten by a snake and die.
It's quite amazing the cultural different the kind of the cultural aspect of that. As you say, these people go to these people because they've their whole life they've done that. That's, as you say, it's their religious person. It's the person who their religious leader that they're going to and such forth. And the one thing I find extremely interesting is the way that something you said earlier about where the people who do go to get to the hospital, because they've been through the rituals and stuff beforehand, they've got to the hospital so late that then it becomes the hospital's fault that the person has died. Well, actually, in reality, it's that time that it's taken that person to get correct and well-known treatment to the bite itself, and it's pretty amazing actually that these things. I can understand why they happen. I can really understand why they happen, but it's amazing to see that.
See,
it's hard for
yeah,
people to see that it's that time. But
that is the problem, because When the patient dies, it is usually in the hospital, but nobody will know that what time the patient reached the hospital. After 8 hours of a crate bite, a semi-dead person reaching the hospital for treatment, a doctor is not a god. It's too late. But the problem is that the people will talk that the patient died in the hospital. On the other hand, there is the local healer who already saved 90% of his patients.
On top
So
of that, you've also got the side effects from the treatment. So if the patient comes out with scarring or has lost a leg from surgery, that also plays into going to the faith healer over going to the hospital. You've got that kind of reinforced negative image of the hospital. You've got the permanent marks. You've got a reminder, whereas the faith healer will just, as you say, brush some leaves over you or give you an ointment.
absolutely, because most of these faith healers are kind of powerful people. I mean, I interacted with a few of them. I try to talk sense with them, and they will just act as if they are possessed by a snake god and start cursing you. And people who came with me ran away actually in a few places. They said that we don't want to have this snake curse on us. This fellow sitting in front of you, once you start confronting him, he'll ask, are you actually asking about my abilities to treat snake bites? I am my father, my grandfather, forefathers, all of us are treating snake bites. And if you don't believe me, here I'm going to curse you with a snake bite. So probably sooner or later I'll get a snake bite.
But then, as you say, because there is an enormous amount of snakes in a place where there's an enormous amount of people, reality of it is there's going to be some interaction of snakebite where if somebody was cursed by these people are going to get bitten because of the situation that they're in. And then that, again, compounds the fact that that person may be correct. They may have actually had this line through to this snake god or whatever, who then could save them, and the circle keeps compounding itself of these religious leaders and these religious healers, or these faith healers. They're kind of always the go-to people. It's a vicious circle, really, especially in this situation.
See, when you look at the Indian tradition, culture, myths, we have beautiful culture around snakes. I mean, the starting from the mythical snakes in our Puranas or Vedas to snake worshipping. But when you look behind, a little deeper, you will understand that these all things had a lot of meaning. If you look at the snake worshipping in India, I mean, that's an interesting thing. As per the culture, you are supposed to have a designated area, a small forest for snakes in your village. We call it as a sacred grove. I mean, nowhere in the world you will find something like that. The wisdom behind was that when you disturb the farmlands, when you disturb everywhere around, these are the places where snakes will go and hide. We had acres or hectares of such forests within villages, within small townships, which were actually kept for snakes and other smaller wildlife. So they had these refuges. But now when we are developing, these acres of things got shrunken. It became small. There are no places for the snakes to go and hide. So we had a system earlier to avoid snake bites and manage snake bites, but we lost that wisdom in the developmental process. And people like this faith healers take advantage of the system. So when you look at the Indian culture, the Indian mythology, snakes are very, very, very strong symbols, and that strength, that reverence, is misused by these faith healers, so that they can earn a living out of fear.
See, that's really interesting. That again, something that you just don't realize, that as you say, as you developed, it's you're getting more and more interactions with snakes and such forth, which is allowing the snakebite issue to become a bigger problem. One thing that I was going to ask about, and I think Ed messaged me about it actually a minute ago, was the use of black stones in treatment within India. Is that right, Ed?
Yes, this is actually something came from Sri Lanka, the snake stone. The history, if I'm not mistaken, it was practiced by a few missionary hospitals when there was no antivenom available. I have seen it. This is known as a stone which will pull the snake venom out. It is widely practiced in many places, but it is slowly disappearing. It was a thing which was used. Uh, but not all over the country. Probably it was used a lot in the southern part of the country.
Okay, it's something that there's quite interesting to see the difference and hear the difference about the different types of treatment that are effectively your go-to treatment in that country. So, just looking at the time and interested in the time, we've been recording for about an hour now, and I think
My God.
yeah, it goes very, very quickly. and I'd like to just to thank you so much, because it's probably been one of the most fact-filled hours that we've had on the podcast. That has been absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Would you like to give some details out for people, our listeners, to be able to either contact you or get involved or see the work that you're doing? Is there anything specific that people can follow?
We are in the process of rolling out the next level of Indian Snakebite Initiative across the country. 1,000+ volunteers will be working all around the country. Next 10 years, we are going to fight this battle using technology, using people. Will be going to the ground. Anybody who would like to volunteer, take part, want to support, whichever way. I mean, we lose about 50,000 people, and we don't want that. And we want our people and snakes to live together for next 50,000 more years. And anybody is welcome to contact us. You can send an email to us. You can visit indiansnakes.org or snakebiteinitiative.in, or just shoot an email. We are always happy to join hands.
And just as a personal perspective, just going on those websites and reading the information and stuff that's already available on there, I learned quite a bit. So I think it's definitely worthwhile for our listeners to go on and actually understand and help them understand the issues and the situations and obviously the species diversity and such forth that you have over there. Because as from my very short times in visiting different parts of India, that is one thing that does stick out is the culture, and also the animal diversity that you have is absolutely incredible. And
we are proud of our cultural and natural heritage, and we should preserve it for the future. I mean, 300 species of snakes and a billion people, or more than a billion people. It's an interesting coexistence, and we should continue doing this forward.
Definitely. So I'd just like to thank you once more for coming on. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I'd also like to thank our listeners for joining us again as usual. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we've enjoyed recording it. And for everybody, till next time, thank you very much.
Thank you.